when our boys, let's say this, when our boys were growing up, it was always Thanksgiving morning. We could sleep in a little bit. The boys would go to play football. They called it touch football, but they played on the high school, football field, and they played without any helmets and without any rules either. So you always hoped and prayed everybody would come back in one piece. And I do remember one Thanksgiving, our son got blocked or knocked or tackled to the ground and ripped out something in his knee and had to have surgery. Hey, that's sports, baby. Yes. That's just big time sports, right? It could happen to anybody.
The following Thanksgiving, it was wiffle ball. Wiffle ball, boys.
Wiffle ball.
That's right.
Well, that reminds me, if I can just jump in here too, I remember when I was at Boston College, and this is just a guy thing. On Thanksgiving week, before we all went home for the break, we didn't get a whole week off back then. Some buddies of mine and I went down to the Boston College football field, with the big stands and everything like that. Nobody stopped us, and there was a bunch of guys already down there, and we played touch football on the Boston College football field.
That's
now
cool.
you'd get arrested, and the FBI probably turned loose on you. But
a young Doug Flutie was watching from the stands. He was inspired by y'all playing football out
Doug,
there.
That's right.
Yeah,
good call back from the old days, Doug Flutie.
All right. Well, Fred, why don't we get going?
Get going.
Let's jump on in the news.
Well, for those of us living in the Tupelo, Mississippi area, maybe didn't get much sleep last night. There was that front that they've been talking about. I think it started out in California, moved its way across the country, but it was a nasty night last night.
Mm-hmm.
However, when it comes to damage from this storm, Houston, Texas looks like it took the brunt of it in the country. We have a story on our site, afn.net this morning, that says torn roofs and smashed windows among damage to over 100 homes in a tornado near Houston. Now, we have listeners, especially in the north end of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So to you folks this morning, you can go to our site. You'll see at least one image there of some of the damage, and I've looked at some of the other images coming out of that area of Houston. And what's amazing is that no one lost their lives. There may have been some minor injuries, but for those folks, talk about heading into Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So we need to be praying for those folks.
20,000 customers without power at one point.
Yes.
Overnight.
So be praying for those folks. They've got other things planned now for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Those that have damaged houses and that sort of thing.
I would like to just give a shout out to the men and women who get power put back on after storms.
The linemen.
I am always constantly amazed at how quickly they get stuff turned around. So talk about being thankful for people. Those folks who, in the middle of the storm, no matter if it's a holiday or not, they're out there.
Yeah, they're on call. They get the call in the middle of the night. They get called up.
Yes, absolutely. Well, in the midst of all of this, today, by the way, guys, is the busiest travel day perhaps of the year. It's the Tuesday before the
Tuesday before. Okay.
Thanksgiving. I guess most people have a couple of days left of vacation, and they start out on Tuesday. Today alone, according to the transportation people, there's over 50,000 flights moving about.
Wow.
Now, according to the Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, things have pretty well returned to order after the government shutdown. We all know what happened. But the transportation industry believes it is ready. Cut number 10, here's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy.
We anticipate there's going to be solid staffing in our towers and TRACONs and centers throughout the airspace. And that's different than what we had over the shutdown. If you are traveling by air, I would just ask that you stay in touch with your airline or update your apps so you know if your flight has been delayed or moved at all.
So, millions of people traveling, and people traveling also obviously by car and other modes of transportation. So a busy time. If you are traveling by air, they still suggest that you call the airline and make sure that your flight is operating. That's always really good advice. And I think it's good to ask people to be patient.
Yeah.
you know, bless their hearts, the TSA people, folks are rushing. They want to get to their flight. And sometimes it's not the TSA people that are nasty.
That's true.
Let's face it. It's the customers rolling through, and TSA says you have to open up the suitcase and all that sort of thing, and people get frustrated. Take your time. Thank the Lord that you're able to travel.
That's right.
And that you'll get to your destination.
Yeah, it seems like after COVID, to me, cordiality has taken a kind of a nosedive across the board. With service people and with customers. So yeah, great point, Fred.
Yeah. All right. Just mentioned the shutdown. We just came out of that. Was it 43 days?
Longest on record.
Yeah, longest on record.
Longest on record. You will remember the reason for the shutdown is that the Democrats wanted to extend the Biden COVID subsidies. They raised the subsidies during COVID to help people who were put out of work, and they still needed that Obamacare coverage during that time. The Republicans dug in and said, "No, we're not going to vote for that." Well, the shutdown is over, but apparently, according to a story of the Associated Press, and again we have this on afn.net, the White House is circulating a plan to extend Obamacare subsidies. You're going to shake your head at this, folks. According to the AP, they say they have sources that there is a draft plan suggests that President Donald Trump is open to extending a provision of Obamacare, which would see these subsidies extended for another 2 years. Now, there's an election next year. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
Yeah, I would say that factors in just a little bit. This is kind of frustrating for me and for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of our listeners. When you hear about people talk about the uniparty, to me this is something that sticks out because for once it looked like the Republicans held out during the shutdown, held Schumer's feet to the fire, and they didn't budge. And we got out of the shutdown without really any major concessions. Matter of fact, Schumer was on the hot seat, and it may still be on the hot seat because he conceded. They get out of the shutdown without any major concessions to the Democrats, and now turn around, and because of election season, election season being just around the corner, now we have the White House a proposed plan. This is, I guess, the rumors, a proposed plan to extend the premiums, which is what Republicans were fighting the Democrats about all along.
Well, I got bad news for everybody. This is going to continue, this kind of thing, this uniparty approach to these kinds of problems for a number of reasons. First of all, the federal government has, for decades and decades and decades, far exceeded its constitutional authority and has made itself indispensable in the lives of a huge chunk of the American electorate and people who can't vote, children and elderly people who might not be getting out to vote. People now depend on the federal government for a lot of stuff. And it's all important stuff. That's part of the problem, is that once a large chunk of the American people become dependent upon the health care that they need, and they do need it. That's the thing. When they become dependent upon the federal government for SNAP benefits, when they become dependent upon the federal government for their housing, for subsidies, for this and for that, and you have city governments and state governments dependent upon the federal government for monies from everything from education to transportation, there is no easy way to get off that dependency. I would say there is no way to do it in terms of piecemeal legislation and moving. I mean, President Trump tried this with Doge, okay, and that's just going to be relegated probably to the dustbin of history. We can't even, as far as I know, get the Republicans to put all that into law.
Yep.
This all basically by executive order and things that can easily be reversed. The only thing that is going to change that is if and when the federal government goes broke. Mm-hmm. All right, that is, I think, and I know that sounds pretty negative, but this is what the founders warned about. This was part of the experiment, and we have failed. And I'm not saying the country is going to go, into the dumpster right away, but it's clear that neither political party has. I'm going to stop because I'll rant about this for hours. Neither political party has the will to tell the American people, you've got 5 years to get independent of the federal government, because then we're going to stop, except for our constitutional duties. Nobody's going to say that. And especially if those members of Congress are going to put their reelection as their primary job responsibility, they're going to do whatever they have to get reelected and kick the can down the road. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah. Hey, but the cost of your turkey's down, for 1%. So, hey, Ray, it seems to me that this issue of government spending that Ed was talking about, government spending and a population becoming increasingly reliant on money from the government, seems to me that there's this recursive issue or a circular issue that happens, so that the cost of, because the government increased these subsidies for Obamacare, I'm guessing, based on my own healthcare expenses that I've had with 5 kids, they definitely come around pretty often. Healthcare hasn't gotten any cheaper; it's only gotten more expensive. So the subsidies increase the cost of healthcare, which means that people are paying more for healthcare, which means that they need the continued subsidy. You see this kind of recursive issue. How would you break that cycle, Ray? I mean, what do you do about that?
Solve it,
Solve
Ray.
it right now.
Right. Give me 30 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, look, I can remember, I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan coming into power, and he was going to tame the size of the federal government. And he came in with all good intentions, right? All good intentions, had both houses of the Congress with him for a while. How much did he, and President Reagan was truly a great man, but he found once he got to the White House, it's almost impossible for all the reasons, Ed, that you laid out earlier. It almost doesn't matter what the politicians say when they're on the campaign stump. They will tell us what they think we want to hear. They go to Washington, and it seems as if nothing ever changes. And do I have a solution? I think I'd be in Washington if I had a solution.
Yeah.
Instead of talking to you, because I don't really. The Americans are in the entitlement mode, right? And it's built in and it's baked in. So we didn't send Donald Trump to Washington to continue the Obamacare thing for 2 more years.
Right.
But I'm not surprised, because President Trump is nothing if he's not a pragmatic politician. And to make whatever deal he wants to make, maybe they're going to do this. Is it a good idea? I doubt it, but that's where we are.
There's one more aspect to this, and it's in this AP story that we have on our website, afn.net. It says eligibility for the Obamacare subsidies. By the way, during the shutdown, they said there were in excess of 40 million Americans that are on Obamacare right now, both citizens and non-citizens. All right. For the Obamacare subsidies, which were implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic to help people afford health care coverage, would be capped at 700% of the federal poverty level, according to 2 people with knowledge of the proposal.
Did you say 700?
700%. So I wasn't sure what the official federal government poverty level number was. So did a little bit of research. For single people, it is around $15,000. For
In other words, you qualify.
Yes.
Okay.
For a family of 4, the official poverty level is said to be $32,000. So you got to 7 times those numbers to see if you would qualify for these subsidies. Again, it's according to this AP story of unnamed sources. But usually, even with the AP, and I don't completely trust the Associated Press certainly all the time, but usually there's an element of truth here. Overall, it would not surprise me if there is some truth that they plan to continue these subsidies for the next 2 years.
Well, and let me just give a little bit more bad news, because the younger generations, so that's younger than Tony's age, but especially those who are coming into a voting age, they are clearly not of the mindset that, hey, we need to shrink the size of the government. All right, they are asking politicians to forgive their college loans, to make it easier for them to buy or rent housing. And listen, I'm not blaming anybody.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming anybody for wanting those things. I'm not blaming people who are using the federal government to feed their families. We have entered into a situation where people have to have it, and they can only look to the government. But what I'm saying is the younger generation is going to want more of it.
Well, and I can't, this is going to sound weird, I can't say that I blame them, because the economy and the environment they are growing up in has been inflated by reckless government spending for the last, ever since I've been involved in politics. I mean, I'd say really since the last 20 years, it's really accelerated. I mean, the government's always been spending more than it brings in, but it's really just accelerated. So they are growing up in a world where healthcare from the start is not affordable.
Right.
I mean, it's Fred, 700% of the federal poverty level. That's capping the subsidy access, folks. That means that health insurance. Well, when you go see your physician, they're not going to lower their prices because there's the government right behind you subsidizing up to 700% of a person's subsidy they're going to pay towards health care. The health insurance companies aren't going to lower their prices because they've got the full faith and backing of the federal government and its entitlement program. So, yeah, you have young people growing up who have, in a lot of ways, no other alternative. You know, they were told from the beginning, you mentioned college, they were told from the beginning that in order to make a living, in order to make money, you got to go to college. Now, if you take, underwater LGBTQ basket weaving theory, that's your problem. But you have young people who are getting legitimate degrees now, but are coming out of colleges with tremendous debt because that's the direction they've been pushed. And you have the federal government who's been subsidizing scholarships and aid and everything else, guaranteeing it. So colleges continue to creep up and raise their prices. I can't say, I blame that mindset. Now, is it a good mindset to have? No. Is it going to lead towards financial ruin? Probably. But it's the situation that we're in, unfortunately. And like you said, apart from a massive government default, there's I don't see many other ways to right the ship. Happy Thanksgiving.
It's also the abuse of the emergency rooms.
Yes, all of this.
People can show up in emergency rooms. They don't have any insurance, but those emergency rooms have to service those individuals. And the hospitals say, we got to make up this cost somewhere else.
Yeah.
I was told by an insurance agent back a few weeks ago that a week's stay in some hospitals now, the full cost is about $100,000.
For a week, I'm shocked that's all it is.
Yes.
For a week.
Folks, you're listening to Today's Issues on American Family Radio. When we come back, Jenna Ellis will be joining us to discuss some of the events happening around our nation and the world. We'll be right back after a short break.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus had these words to say, "But I say to you that hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you." Edwin Stanton lived from 1814 to 1869. He was a nervous, cranky, and contradictory lawyer who worked his way up after dropping out of college because of a lack of funds. Stanton served as the Attorney General in the cabinet of President James Buchanan. Stanton also was a sharp critic of Abraham Lincoln and had many unkind words for the man who followed Buchanan as the President of the United States. He often spoke of Lincoln as a low, cunning clown, and even nicknamed him the original gorilla. Stanton went so far as to suggest to a famous hunter of the time that he was a fool to wander over Africa trying to catch a gorilla when he could have easily found one in Springfield, Illinois. Well, after Lincoln was elected president, he was influential in acquiring a post as legal advisor to Simon Cameron, Secretary of War for Stanton. Even after this favor, Stanton continued his harsh criticism of Lincoln. Many people were shocked when Lincoln appointed Stanton as the Secretary of War following the resignation of Cameron. It was hard for them to understand why Lincoln would give such a high, important post to a man who had continually criticized him and his policy. While Stanton was treating Lincoln in such a manner, Lincoln continued to show Stanton every courtesy. He never spoke to him harshly or returned hateful remarks with hateful remarks. Lincoln appointed Stanton to the job of Secretary of War for one simple reason: Stanton was the best man for the job. Lincoln knew this and did not let the ugliness of Stanton stop him from making the appointment. On the night of April 14, 1865, Lincoln was watching a play entitled Our American Cousin from a box at Ford's Theater in Washington. During the play, a man by the name of John Wilkes Booth entered the box where Lincoln was sitting and shot the president in the head. During the confusion that followed, Lincoln was carried to a little room where an attempt was made to save his life. Into that room that night came several people. They watched, stunned, as their president lay dying. Among those who were there was Edwin Stanton, the man who had been so harsh and critical of the president, despite the fact that the president had shown him every courtesy and kindness. Looking down at the rugged form of a gentle man, Stanton spoke through tears. "There lies the greatest ruler of men the world has ever seen," he said. You know, Jesus once said, "Love your enemies and pray for your persecutors and those who treat you spitefully." Stanton had learned the hard way that this was the highest and noblest way of living ever given to mankind, and his criticism was finally silenced by love.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
The Lord looks down from heaven on all mankind to see if there are any who understand God, any who seek God. Psalm 14, verse 2.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Good morning and welcome back to today's issues. You are listening to American Family Radio, AFR. You can listen to us on afr.net on your radio in your car or on the app, the AFR app. And if you miss a show, you can catch all the shows that you've missed. So you can go back and listen as far back as you want to. We keep them for a couple of years. So in studio with me is Ed Vitagliano and Fred Jackson. From the great Sunshine State is Ray Pritchard. And joining us now is Jenna Ellis, also from the great Sunshine State, host of the Jenna Ellis in the Morning show. It's heard at weekdays at 7 a.m. Central Time on AFR, and host of the On Demand podcast. Now, that is the name of the podcast. That always confused me a little bit. So the podcast in and of itself is On Demand, but the name of the podcast is On Demand. Is that correct, Brent?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that's found on afr.net. So welcome, Jenna.
Thanks. And yeah, that's actually why we called it On Demand, because it's on demand.
Yep.
So,
And
yes.
you are in demand.
That's
yes.
right. There's a theme here. A lot of Florida residents on the show today. So
The
there's
great
something
state
about
of Florida.
the great state of Florida. Jenna, do you have any plans for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, so I'm actually staying in the free state of Florida, and so I have a few neighbors and some friends who don't have any other family plans, and so I'm actually hosting a Thanksgiving brunch at my house, which I'm very excited about. So having kind of a Friendsgiving this year, and really looking forward to it.
And I've also heard one of your two dogs,
Yes.
Doug and Howard, right? That's the name of your dogs?
Todd and Copper, and that was little Todd. And we've had a few of the neighborhood kids coming by, and I'm not exactly sure what they're selling or doing for their school project, but they've been coming around and knocking on our door all this morning. So Todd is at his post patrolling.
Oh, I
Let
have
me
bad
know.
news for you, Jenna. That they're not coming for a project. If kids in the neighborhood are knocking on your door and running, okay, that is a
No, they're not
common
running.
prank.
They're not running. They're actually, because I'd opened the door a little bit. They're doing something for selling, like, I think it's like wrapping paper or something. Not totally sure. We haven't answered the door every time, but they're all
Wrapping paper.
yeah.
That's a thing.
It's
Okay.
a big thing. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I've never heard of that. I've heard of cookies and
Yeah.
popcorn, but never wrapping paper.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Jenna, welcome to the show. We been talking about an article that you wrote for the Christian Post. I think it was yesterday posted. Really good article about. It's called "The New Rights Revolt is Not Really About Israel." So, could you give us kind of just an overview of what you kind of discuss in this article?
Yeah, and this is in the Christian Post today, and I think we're also posting this on American Family News as well. And we've seen for the last few months, especially with the Ted Cruz-Tucker Carlson debate a couple months ago, that really was kind of the launch into a more national conversation about this question of whether the conservative right should support Israel. It's always been a basic assumption that, of course, we should, and yet the younger generation and those who are terming themselves the new right, which are kind of these isolationist, populist-driven, America-only kind of, I guess, consensus on this new right, is really a breakdown of the consensus that has once bound us together as conservatives. And that's true for the overall consensus that they're seeking as a right, a Republican Party that's less tied to Reagan's legacy, less anchored by churches, less committed to alliances and allegiances, and more defined by an online populism that elevates grievance over governance. So they want to frame the old right, and they would put Christian conservatives in this category, as antiquated, backward-looking traditionalists, while rebranding as relevant, post-truth, and quote-unquote just asking questions. We've seen Tucker, Candace Owens, a few of those using that phraseology. And in their emerging worldview, support for Israel is a marker of the old right, while skepticism is a badge that shows membership in the new right. And so what I'm suggesting in this piece is that it's less about a theological or even policy argument to be anti-Israel. It's more about marginalizing the old establishment, conservatives, and Christians. And so that consensus that once made up the three pillars of evangelical Christians, the Reagan-Bush foreign policy establishment, and free market institutionalists, that consensus is the target, and the commonality has been support for Israel.
So I guess there is some, I think we would all agree that there probably is some validity to the criticism that some people on the new right would have of the establishment, right? I mean, especially the younger generation, they've been failed by the establishment so many times that I think a rebellion is of sorts is natural. Now, the way it's manifesting itself is of concern to a lot of us here, and who aren't just establishment diehards. We're critical of we're critical of aspects of the Bush era, but we're also critical of aspects of the Trump era also. So, Jenna, how do we go about reaching out to especially young people who are increasingly aligning themselves with the new right, at reaching out to them and kind of pulling them back away from the aspects of the new right that are detrimental for our country and our alliances globally? How would we go about reaching out?
That's a great question, and I think it comes first with not suggesting that the critique or skepticism of institutions that have failed the younger generation is wrong, and that their questioning of these things and their skepticism of government is somehow misplaced. But instead of driving them to the old establishment or to man-made institutions, we need to tell them to look toward the eternal principles that transcend man-made institutions. We need to look at God-ordained institutions, which is the church government, the family government, and a legitimate civil government. And I actually wrote about that in another piece, a companion piece, basically to this, talking about how the answer to the future of conservatism isn't behind us, it's above us. And that, I think, is what's missing overall in some of the old establishment that the new right is rightly criticizing or correctly criticizing, where Ted Cruz, frankly, didn't have a good answer for why why America should support Israel. He didn't know about, Genesis chapter 12. He couldn't quote that. He didn't have a comprehensive argument. He just sort of assumed that because the right has always been a supporter of Israel, that would just continue, and he didn't have to actually explain himself. And so for people, just really quickly, for people who are kind of confused with this term, the new right, I actually created a definition that we're going to have in our upcoming issue of the Stand magazine. And so this is the definition as I've described it. The new right, that term, is an emergent populist faction on the American right that rejects traditional conservatism, its moral foundations, and the God-ordained institutions, church, family, limited government, that once anchored the movement. It defines itself less by principled philosophy and Western values and more by media-driven contrarianism, grievance politics, and a performative rejection of the older GOP consensus. Suspicious of churches, historic alliances, constitutional order, and long-standing commitments, especially support for Israel, the new right recasts America first as America only, promoting isolationism and disengagement rather than national strength. Personal brands, not principles and theology, drive its incentives, rewarding hostility toward the old right, evangelical influence, and donor networks. Instead of conserving, the new right seeks to tear down traditional structures and redefine the right around reaction, digital clout, and post-truth identity rather than ordered liberty.
Wow. Great.
Jenna and Fred here, in this article, which is terrific, really thought-provoking, you say the shift going on, pardon me, is especially pronounced among younger conservative men. They are more secular, more anti-war, less institutionally attached, and more shaped by TikTok, YouTube, and algorithmic contrarianism than by the scars of 9/11 or the benefits of the Reagan era. That surprised me a little bit because, I've been reading polls where, the followers of Charlie Kirk included a lot of young men. You mentioned something a moment ago. Does the church bear some responsibility for not grounding what we would call traditional values in eternal scriptures?
Absolutely. And I blame largely this shift on the overall woke evangelical movement that has really been infiltrating America for the last few decades. And so this next generation grew up in the era of the celebrity pastor, the woke church, and a lack of grounding in eternal principles, and more with this idea that the church has to be relevant to the culture. The church is more about living your best life, advocating for these kind of TED Talks and giving motivational speeches, instead of discipling young men in actually the ways of truth and the scripture and the gospel. And so when the church is not the church, then it's not driving young men toward the family, which is the grounding institution for society. And so this studies show that fewer people are getting married and fewer people are marrying young. And that even among Christians, this idea of marriage is more of, well, do I want to do this for my own personal benefit? And do I want to have kids? And do I want to spend my economic capital on kids? Or do I want to be kind of this dual income, no kids, or what they call the dinks, the dual income, no kids? And do I even want to have a commitment in marriage rather than just a long-term girlfriend? And the rise of figures on the right, like the Andrew Tates, that suggest that masculinity is just about self and about this projection of control. And then the rise of the anti-Semitic kind of Nick Fuentes that has, a very large following. And then these just asking questions kind of people like the Tucker Carlsons, they're all working actually alongside the woke churches to push young men further and further away from God's design and participation in God-ordained institutions because of the skepticism of man-made institutions.
Jenna, I agree with Tony and Fred and Ray. I'm sure we're going to let Ray in here, I guess. But this was a superb article. Your insights here,
Thank you.
and one of the things that I noted in conversations during our story meeting is the fact that what you describe what's happening on the new right mirrors what's happening in the Democratic Party with the younger voters coming up who are also hostile to the establishment and who are also kind of blazing a heretofore unseen trail in terms of Democratic politics. So we have this younger generation, probably for similar reasons, mirroring each other as they attempt to hollow out the political parties, the two political parties that have governed American politics for more than a century, and completely change them to reflect a whole new view. I found that kind of a fascinating kind of mirror imaging. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think what you're describing, and I'm so glad that you brought up that point, because what you're describing is what I've long called the problem with the traditional political spectrum. That if you imagine this, what we often do is draw kind of a straight line and have the far left and then the far right, and moderates kind of in the middle. And we've always characterized the right being to the right of center and the left being left of center, and it's always a straight line. But I think that there's a problem with that. I think that it's actually a bell curve, because if we curve that line and we say that conserving truth and biblical God-ordained institutions is at the top of that, you can then fall off and get to a false worldview on either the left or the right. And the further you go toward the extremes of either end of that bell curve, then the further you get from conserving truth. And so it's not just this linear spectrum, and we actually want to go the farthest to the right as we can, because moderate centrist is a bad thing. We are actually, it's not about moderate or centrism at all. It's about conserving the truth, which should be at the top of that bell curve. And we don't want to fall off toward totalitarian, dystopian, tyranny on the left, but we also don't want to fall off into this isolationism, populist-driven, new right sort of fanaticism that we're seeing that's actually anarchy on the total right. We have to conserve the truth, which is always God-centered.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Ray?
Jenna, first of all, thank you for a tremendous column. Let's talk about President Trump. And I say that because in your column, you just kind of drop a line in there. You say President Trump complicates matters. I suppose we would all look at President Trump and say he is indeed, as you say in the column, broadly pro-Israel. But in what way does the president, with something new to say every day, how does that complicate this whole issue?
Well, I think he complicates the picture because, as I write in the piece, he remains broadly pro-Israel. He's not working at all to alienate evangelical voters. In fact, we still have the faith-based office in the White House. Charlie Kirk was one of his best friends. He certainly is very much a friend of the evangelical right. But the problem is that the movement that has formed around him, the overall MAGA movement, is headed in a very different direction. And his populism kind of spearheaded that. And so because he is not overall theologically based, his policy is not based on a comprehensive theology. It's based on his populist view of what he thinks is best for America, where we may align with that, 90% and even greater, 95%. The fact is, he is not steering the ideological trajectory of the right. He is just being pulled along by it. And once he exits, with not having another election, whoever is the next MAGA leader or movement of the overall GOP or this new right, if they are not principled and grounded in theology, they're going to steer this even more into a populist, isolationist, anti-God, anti-Israel, godless movement than President Trump ever intended.
Insightful commentary as always, Jenna. Great article. What do you have going on this week on the show? Anything?
Yeah, thanks. So tomorrow I'm actually really excited to do most of the show that is dedicated to this idea of Islam infiltration into the United States. So I have a very dear friend of mine, Shahram Hadian. He runs the Truth in Love ministry, and he's going to be on for the majority of the program talking about the truth of Islam being a legal framework. It's not just a religion. It actually, Sharia law is inextricably intertwined with what it means to be a Muslim. And he's someone that actually grew up in Iran. He was a former Muslim, and then by the grace of God, learned the truth of the gospel of Christ, and he's dedicated his ministry to being a pastor proclaiming that truth. And so we're going to go into detail about why it's very dangerous just to characterize people like Zoran Mamdani as just a Democrat socialist. It's actually more insidious that he is a dedicated member of Islam, and how we need to fight for the future of America and reject any form of Islam that is infiltrating.
Well, I can't wait. And that is Jenna Ellis in the morning. That will be on airing tomorrow. And then you can also catch her show on demand, found at afr.net. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. And please do read this article in the Christian Post today. And I've posted it all across my socials. It's titled "The New Rights Revolt is Not Really About Israel." So happy Thanksgiving, guys. Thanks.
Yes.
And that is on AFN.net.
It is AFN.net.
So either way, these were great insights from her, and I hope she continues to study this, and to hope God continues to give her insights, because this is I was in kind of preparing for this segment with Jenna. I was reminded of a phrase from Thomas Hobbes, the kind of natural law philosopher from the 1600s. I mean, way back. The war of all against all. And I'm not a political scientist. I enjoy it and read it. But my understanding of what Hobbes believed was that outside of a government, human beings tend to fracture and go to war with one another, and that you need government and the social contract to lessen that and to allow human beings to live in a peaceful environment. You need government. Now, Hobbes believed in what he called Leviathan, a very strong, almost totalitarian state. I don't agree with that at all. But what it did remind me of is that as republics fracture, like we are clearly fracturing in this country, you do get this war of all against all.
Yep.
You get this fragmenting, you get all these splinters that will temporarily align to defeat this person, and you don't really have a coherent culture or ideology guiding the nation. And what happens is you sometimes devolve to the part where, to the extent that you need a dictator, and that's what happens to republics when they fall apart, is they go to totalitarianism as a solution.
Right, because in our political climate today, it's more about winner take all power control rather than the arena of free speech and ideas, where if you want to have a majority in the control in the government, you have to win over your fellow citizens outside of the government with your ideas.
Yeah.
It used to be that way. It used to be more so a battle of the ideas, discussions, open discussions. Now it's more of it seems to be more of a power grab. Who's going to take control and steer the ship?
If you're successful, like Charlie Kirk, we'll shoot you.
Yeah.
All right. That's the kind of thing. Anyway,
that's where we're at.
Let me just say just one other thing. I don't want our listeners to get depressed because God is in control, and I do not know what the future of America is, but I do know this: the gates of hell are not going to prevail against the church.
Amen.
And whatever we face as a nation and as a people. I love what Jenna was saying. I absolutely love what she said about the bell curve, that even conservatives can get it wrong. Just because you're a conservative doesn't mean your ideas, political ideas, align with Scripture. And part of the problem is we are not seeing pastors teach their people about how biblical truth leads to certain political outcomes. And as a result of that, bad actors are taking control of the hearts and minds of many of the people in the church.
Amen.
All right,
Fred?
just have a few minutes left before the news. And, during the shutdown, the government shutdown, there were other things going on. The news cycles focused on the impact of the shutdown, et cetera, et cetera. As almost a sidebar story, we heard stories about, the Trump administration, our military, blowing up drug boats coming out of Venezuela. And then there was the story of us moving military hardware, lots of it, into the waters off of Venezuela, including our largest aircraft carrier. And then yesterday, amongst other things going on, the U.S. officially labeled Maduro-tied Cartel de los Soles as a terror organization, Maduro being the dictator of Venezuela. Kind of scary stuff that all of this is heading. And even Republican Congresswoman from Florida, Maria Salazar, in an interview with Fox last evening, said basically the United States is headed towards a takeover in Venezuela, cut number 4.
Maduro is not Fidel Castro. Maduro is not a brave boy. So now that he has understood that he's on that very nefarious list of the terrorist organization, that the airspace above Venezuela has been closed off and the commercial airlines from the United States are not flying, he's understanding that we're about to go in. He understands that he has been our enemy for the last 25 years. Venezuela, for those Americans who do not understand why we need to go in, basically for three reasons. Venezuela, for the American oil companies, will be a field day because it will be more than $1 trillion in economic activity. American companies can go in and fix all the oil pipe, the whole oil rigs, and everything that has to do with the Venezuelan petroleum companies, or everything that has to do with oil and the derivatives.
Yeah, 3 reasons she said oil. She also talked about security, bad actors in Venezuela, and also political, that those people need to be freed.
Yeah, so we have some, there's things going on in the world. Hopefully this situation can be resolved without direct involvement by us, but we'll see what happens. Coming up, we have a 5-minute break for news, and then we'll have Steve Jordahl joining us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
They will thrust a cell phone in your face. If you ask a question, they'll surround you with cameras. They'll scream at you. They'll try to get you to commit violence. I believe God is giving us a little bit of a glimpse into what life without Him would be like.
A Disciple's View with Todd Herman. Critical information from a faith-enriching perspective. Weekdays at noon Central on AFR. This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Authorities in Chicago are being accused of ignoring warning signs leading up to an attack in which 50-year-old Lawrence Reed set a 26-year-old woman on fire on a train. Mike Tobin in Chicago with more.
Court records obtained by Fox News show that the Chief Judge's office was getting notifications that Lawrence Reed was repeatedly violating the curfew on his electronic monitoring. 7 times in the month of November, 4 times the system signaled an escalated alert. Now, on Wednesday, November 12th, the record shows Reed stayed out all night. Similar violation on Friday. Monday, November 17th, the night Bethany McGee was set on fire, the electronic monitoring system again showed an escalated alert that Lawrence Reed was on the move, and he kept ignoring his curfew the next day when he was finally arrested.
President Trump revealing on Truth Social he spoke with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping about several topics on Monday, including the Ukraine-Russian war. The Chinese president has previously called for peace between the two countries, but Democratic Senator Jean Shaheen notes China has helped fund the conflict for years by purchasing Russian oil. Senator Shaheen says she believes China is looking to see how Russia does in peace talks with Ukraine, adding the negotiations will be crucial for the U.S.
As China's looking at their expansionist ambitions across the Indo-Pacific, if they think the United States is not willing to stand by our ally Ukraine and support them against Russia, then they're going to assume we're not going to stand by our allies in the Indo-Pacific either.
The FBI and Department of Justice have contacted Capitol Police to schedule interviews with 6 members of Congress who appeared in a video urging service members to ignore orders from the commander-in-chief. But former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy thinks at most the Democrats are guilty of insubordination.
The Democrats, if they want to complain about lawless orders, should specify what orders they're talking about. That's perfectly reasonable. But in a country with the First Amendment, they're allowed to make even incorrect statements. As it happens, it's a correct statement of law to say that troops don't have to follow illegal orders, and you'd never be able to make a case out of that. At most, what you would have if they were truly interfering with the carrying out of lawful orders, you'd have insubordination. You wouldn't have anything like sedition or insurrection.
2 teachers in Oregon have won a $650,000 judgment after a court ruled they had the right to criticize the school's gender identity policy. Bob Kellogg has more.
Grants Pass School District teachers Rachel Sager and Katie Medart were terminated for their campaign against the school's gender identity policy of allowing trans males into women's bathrooms. Alliance Defending Freedom attorney Matthew Hoffman.
Rachel and Katie advocated for solutions that they believed in. They created a video on their own time to bring forward loving, reasonable, and tolerant solutions regarding gender identity and education, and they were terminated for that, and that violates the First Amendment.
Hoffman says the 2 were reinstated, but placed in inferior teaching positions, which allowed their lawsuit to continue.
It ultimately ended up in a great opinion by the Ninth Circuit, which reaffirmed that teachers should be free to advocate on matters of public concern, like matters of gender identity policy, and that ultimately led to the great settlement in this case.
Hoffman states the school was also required to issue a public statement of the wrongdoing and amend their bad gender policy.
And finally, be careful before you buy something online this Black Friday. You might be scammed.
New data from NordVPN shows a spike in the number of phony shopping websites popping up during the month of October. The cybersecurity company says it's been an increase of more than 250%. Often the scammy websites are intending to fool shoppers into thinking they're making use of legitimate e-commerce sites such as Amazon and eBay. And the culprits have gotten much better at their phony web design, making them harder to spot. Shoppers are urged to be vigilant and check URLs closely or rely on official apps as opposed to websites. If you feel you've been taken, contact your bank or credit card company. Eben Brown, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Steve Pugh.
At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement across our nation and around the world who hold fast to the inerrancy of Scripture and the hope of holiness. We do this through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kind of pastors we need leading churches in the future, we invite you to think about giving to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Learn more about us at wbs.edu.
Today's Issues continues on AFR.
We are back. Welcome. I'm Tony Vitagliano, sitting in for Tim Wildmon while he is out this week. Joining me in studio is, once again, Ed Vitagliano. Welcome back, Ed.
Yeah, good to be back.
Ray Pritchard coming to us from Zoom land. And with us in studio now is the impeccable Steve Jordahl.
Impeccable.
Yeah, you know, I didn't get
can't
because
be
of the we had the mic snafu. I had new adjectives for everybody, but we missed that, folks.
Well,
That's what happens.
What does peckable mean?
I don't know.
Well,
Impeccable. I can't be pecked.
Impeccable. It means basically your presentation is without.
I know,
equal.
but impeccable. Is there a peckable? I mean, what would
I don't
that?
know.
It's like
You wrote for the Stand for 25 years.
It's like
you tell me.
It's like I'm gruntled. I'm not disgruntled.
That's
I'm
right.
gruntled.
I'm gruntled.
Right. Well, irregardless of what it means. Well, welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
And I don't know if I asked you yesterday. Do you have any plans for Thanksgiving?
We're going to be going. I think we're going to be going to family, Heather's family, and hopefully we're going to have some turkey and
eat some food. Yeah.
Eat some food.
Eat some turkey. Take a nap. You know,
maybe.
It's a tryptophan. It makes everybody brings out their tryptophan knowledge.
There'll probably be some football on the.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. There'll be some football at the Vitagliano house as well. Go Dogs. So, all right, Steve. Well, get us started on the news.
All right. I want to say that the Democrats are not doing any better at coming up with quality candidates. We've seen Zoran Mamdani.
They've been on a hot streak here lately. I know. It's hard to snap.
I know. We've seen Zoran Mamdani in New York City, and there's a Seattle mayor. There's AOC and the Squad. Mm-hmm. They're just coming up with a whole bunch of people, and now they have a new candidate that's running for Congress in Nashville, from Tennessee, the United States Congress from East Nashville. Her name is Afton Ben. Now, I don't have this particular bit of sound, but you may remember we might have talked about Afton Ben was the candidate who said she hates Nashville. She's running to represent Nashville, but she hates everything about it.
Yep.
And she was on MS Now, and she was asked about some tweets that she did, some defund the police tweets. Will she change her mind on these at all?
I don't know.
Let's see. Cut 11.
Representative, in 2020, you made some tweets that have since been deleted that were very critical of police. You said in those since deleted tweets that the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department should be dissolved. Another cheered on a teachers union saying that defund the police should be a requirement for schools reopening. And another saying good morning, especially to the 54% of Americans that believe burning down a police station is justified. 2020 was obviously a very fraught year. Do you still stand by those comments? And if not, is there anything you want to clarify?
I'm not going to engage in cable news talking points, but what I will say is that our communities need solutions. We need local people deciding, solving local problems with local solutions. And that's not the overreach of a federal government or state government of which we are dealing with in Nashville and our cities across the state of Tennessee.
So you don't want to clarify whether you still believe that the police should be defunded?
Once again, I don't remember these tweets, but what I'm saying is that
I'm not asking you if you remember. What is your position today? How's that on this issue?
I mean, once again, I'm here to talk about my race, which is in literally 9 days.
She's here to talk about what?
Her race.
Her race.
Her
I thought
race.
she said raise. I was like, that's bold right there. I just want to get paid. Listen, that's Ed. Local problems. You said local problems require local solutions. Local problems like crime.
Yes.
Local problems like crime, rioting, protests. They require local solutions. Now, what is the best local solution for local crime?
I would say it's police, Tony.
Local law enforcement. Yeah, that's right. This seems to be like a pattern, and I think I made this comment in the meeting we had before the show, that Democrats are now just becoming emboldened to be able to say whatever they want to say without recourse and to just double down on it. So you have Jones, who won the attorney general race in Virginia, talking about he was the one who made the threat or said he would like to see who was it he wanted to see killed and his family killed.
Well, was it I forget the position, but it was
a political opponent.
It was
attorney general something.
The individual, wife, and kids.
Yeah, said that. You have Mamdani, who's an open Islamic communist, talking about we're going to make all the buses free. We don't care if billionaires leave. We don't need them. You have government run everything. Grocery stores. You have Crockett in Texas saying, well, I wasn't talking about that, Epstein, but I'm still not even going to take it back. So there's this trail of just snafus, bungles, and threats. And in this climate, the Democrats just don't seem to want to take back anything. Or correct themselves at all. They're just kind of doubling down. What do you think that leads?
Well, I think I think you're exactly right, and I think the reason for it is that any smart politician on the left in the Democratic Party, let me put it that way. Let me start here. Any Democratic politician who's paying attention knows that the radical left now owns the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And you cannot back down from talking about defund the police, even if with moderate Democrats and independents, that's going to probably be a losing issue. The foot soldiers of the Democratic Party and the people who are going to come out and vote for sure are radicalized. And whether it is official or not, they're the ones who have taken control of the party. So you not only are not going to see someone like Afton Ben walk this back, she'll lose if she does. Mm-hmm. She knows it, and now her odds of winning have dropped as some of these things come out. But I still wouldn't put it past the electorate on the left to vote this woman in.
Yeah, I mean, Mamdani himself had out what seems like to any normal person or any moderate outrageous policies in mind and things that he said he was going to do, and he won the mayoral position of New York City. Arguably one of the most powerful cities in the world. Wasn't even close. Yeah, and that was Brent did a great job. Our producer. That was Jay Jones making a comment about Todd Gilbert. Yep. So Brent's on the case. Making us look better. So
it's hard to do. We look so good already.
Well,
for him to make us look better.
One would say impeccable.
Yeah. Impeccable.
Ray, what do you think about this?
Look, it would have been so easy and politically expedient if she had said, I did say that at one time, but I've rethought this, and I'm a big supporter of the police. But you put your finger on it, Tony. She does not dare to do that because she is bought and sold and owned completely, not just by the left, but the most radical, most leftward leaning people have gone off the cliff. Mm-hmm. So did she speak the truth? Well, I think she spoke the truth by not answering the question.
Right.
She's not willing to back down from an extremely foolish statement because people who want to defund the police should not be in Congress, period.
Right.
The latest polling, by the way, I just looked this up. As of October 19th, so that would be about 6 days ago, Impact Research did a poll of likely voters and found that Ben is at 44% and her opponent, Van Epps, his name is Matt Van Epps, who says he will back the blue. He's at 52, so 44 for Ben, 52 for Epps. Workbench Strategy had a poll the same date, same likely voters, 41 for Ben and 51 for Van Epps. So at this point, she's hurting.
Yeah, well, hopefully the people of Nashville, and we have listeners there, hopefully the people of Nashville make a wise choice. I won't say what is the right choice.
Right.
I'm learning
yeah,
that
because
here. But
we can't do that.
Yeah, we'll make a wise decision.
But I will say that if either of those two candidates would like to appear
That's right.
on today's issues, we'd be more than happy to let them speak to their possible constituents.
Very good. Steve,
there you go.
Keep us going.
We're still talking in this country of ours about this video that a bunch of Democrats put together telling military people, you feel free to disobey what you believe is an illegal order from your commander-in-chief. It's still going around, and in fact, one of the people that was on that video is a guy named Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, and he is a retired U.S. Navy veteran, also an astronaut. And the War Department, this is Mr. Hegseth, just put out a little statement. Let me read this to you. The Department of War has received serious allegations of misconduct against Captain Mark Kelly. In accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice and other applicable regulations, a thorough review of these allegations has been initiated to determine further actions, which may include recall to active duty for court-martial proceedings.
Wow. Well, I wouldn't say it's not warranted. I mean, as far as I'm aware, there are federal statutes in place that prohibit actions that undermine military loyalty or discipline, especially from current and retired military personnel. So, whether what this leads to, I'm not confident this will lead to any serious action, but it should give people pause, especially the people in this video, and who are thinking about doing future videos. It should give pause to say that what we are advocating for is actually illegal, and we should probably taper our reactions and taper our future actions to be a little bit more moderate, a little less openly hostile. Ed, what do you think?
Well, it would be extraordinary for Mark Kelly. Now, my understanding from our conversation in our story meeting this morning when we were talking about this, Steve, is that what this would do was you recall Mark Kelly out of retirement.
Yep.
And and the military can do that.
Yes.
And then once you are once again in the military in a status where you can do this, then you court-martial, and then I guess he loses his benefits. Maybe he loses his pension.
Could end up in Leavenworth. I doubt it. But
yeah, that'd be extreme. But one thing I was thinking about as you guys were talking about this is it just blows my mind that we have entered into a time in our culture where everyone seems to be doing things because of social media. We're going to put out. In other words, when I was growing up, Mark Kelly might have talked about this privately with people, or they might have had a meeting and said, "Hey, spread the word, but don't let this get to the higher ups. We could get in big trouble for this." Now everyone posts it on social media, and they get into all sorts of trouble. Remember all the people who lost their jobs because the first thing they wanted to do after Charlie Kirk was assassinated,
right,
was post something on social media saying, "I'm glad he did. I'm great with it," and they would mock him, and then they lost their jobs.
Yeah,
because they've had somehow the need to let everybody know what they were thinking even when these people were complete unknowns.
Ray, everybody thinks that their view on something, their opinion, is like all important and has to be broadcast over loudspeakers.
You mean our opinions are not all important? I had
Yours is, but mine, I don't think so.
idea, Steve.
My wife tells me that all the time. Your opinion is not all that important.
That's right. It's part of what marriage is all about. Look,
Yeah, I'm kidding.
The whole thing, the whole idea of Mark Kelly, decorated veteran, going on this film, this video, and encouraging American soldiers, sailors, airmen, airwomen, whatever, basically saying to them, you should not obey an order given by the president or by his representatives because you think it's illegal. There already is a way in the military to handle that.
Yeah.
The soldiers are told you take it upward. If you believe the order is illegal, but you don't just on yourself say, I am going to disobey this order. President Trump has called that sedition. And that, sedition is an old-timey word, Ed. We all have to run to the dictionary to figure out what it means. But it's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not good. And it is, and this is a case where President Trump is right. It's an attack on the American military system, an attack on our system of constitutional government. So I couldn't believe it.
So
I couldn't believe it.
In full disclosure, I probably should play this 35 seconds from, this is Andrew McCarthy on Fox News, who says that these men and women who are on this video have the First Amendment right to say what they want to say. This is cut 6.
The Democrats, if they want to complain about lawless orders, should specify what orders they're talking about. That's perfectly reasonable. But in a country with the First Amendment, they're allowed to make even incorrect statements. As it happens, it's a correct statement of law to say that troops don't have to follow illegal orders, and you'd never be able to make a case out of that. At most, what you would have if they were truly interfering with the carrying out of lawful orders, you'd have insubordination. You wouldn't have anything like sedition or insurrection.
Yeah, I mean, that's good on him to reaffirm that. But to go back to Ed's point, social media has created this this idea that you're insulated. Just because you post something on social media means you're insulated from the consequences of what you're saying. And I think what people are starting to find out is that is not the case. Yes, would a person have the right to go out and say, taxes are illegal. Income tax is illegal. I'm not paying my income tax anymore. Who's with me? I'm going to post it all over, TikTok, and then say, well, I just got this audit notice from the IRS. This is it. You can't just say whatever you want and without there being consequences to it. So this could be a very serious consequence for Captain Mark Kelly.
I would say I appreciate what Andrew McCarthy's saying. I disagree with him. Okay, because I think the First Amendment protection would be for Mark Kelly and others to create a video saying, I think we need to have serious conversations about whether the president has the authority to send the National Guard into Chicago.
That's a good point.
Well, I think that we need to have conversations. I don't think this is a lawful order. To me, that's different than encouraging people to possibly commit a crime. I don't know that it rises to the degree that we've been discussing, that, I don't think Mark Kelly's going to prison over this. I'm not even sure he'll get into any trouble simply because I don't think anybody pays a price anymore for things they do, almost no matter how heinous it is.
Right.
But I think there is a difference between having your First Amendment rights out there and saying what you believe about what the president's doing, and then encouraging folks who are still in the military. And man, if there's anybody listening, Mark Kelly, if you get court-martialed for insubordination in the military, that's not going to be on Mark Kelly. That's going to be on you.
Right.
So before you heed what the people in this video are saying, just remember the consequences come to your room if you act on them.
Right. Steve?
All right. People are upset with Cook County Judge Teresa Molina Gonzalez, Cook County, Illinois. Seems that she set free a guy named Lawrence Reed, who had been arrested not 10, not 20, not 50, but 72 times. She let him go, and he went, bought some gasoline, walked on a train on November 17th, doused a young woman with gasoline and set her on fire. Her name is Brooke. I had it just here. Bethany McGee, 26 years old. She is now in critical condition.
Yeah, this one's a tough. I mean, it gets my blood pressure up when I hear stories like this. I talked about this something similar yesterday with the case in Maine with the mother who was banned from talking about God, taking her daughter to church, right, by a lower court judge. The dereliction of duty that our judiciary at really at this point at every level, top to bottom, lower court, all the way up to, in my opinion, in certain cases, the Supreme Court, is infuriating. And there needs to be serious consequences, not just for the criminals, right? Obviously, we all agree the criminals should be, but this guy should have never been out on the street. I don't even know what number to assign of arrest before you're not allowed in the streets, before you're locked up, if he has mental issues, before you're locked up somewhere for good. But there needs to be consequences for these judges letting these criminals roam free. And the consequence, in my opinion, needs to be on them also for the heinous crimes that they commit. Because he should never have been out. Just a horrible, horrible crime that was committed. And it like I said, it gets me a little upset.
All right. Hey, I want to end with this here real quick. There's a guy named Solomon Ray who has topped the iTunes Top 100 Christian Gospel charts, who doesn't really exist. Remember we talked the other day about a country artist this is an AI artist named Solomon Ray who's totally made up, and he actually now has topped the iTunes Top 100 Christian Gospel album. This is the big chart. So it has happened. Now, people ask, I didn't bring it in. There's a whole debate about whether or not it's ethical to play this stuff because it's ripped off from other people. So I decided not to play this. But I will tell you that it's not the only chart that AI is topping now. There's an international chart. There's a nice song that's topping the international charts right now that's getting a lot of play. I do feel okay about playing this one, cut 16.
Ed Vitaliano eats pasta by the moon. He sings to the stars with a big silver spoon. Spills olive oil like it's holy perfume. La Vita's a party, his life's in bloom. Oh, Ed Vitaliano, mamma mia, what a name.
It's kind of catchy tune, isn't it?
I like it. I want it for my my Spotify playlist.
You got it. Italian. It's going to top the Italian charts before we know it.
So was that AI?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Look,
of course,
folks. We promise.
You think they really did a song about you?
Well, listen. Apparently, my life is in bloom. That's what that song said.
Look, folks. One thing I can promise you to our listeners here at AFR. We will never replace our show host with AI show hosts. So you're always going to be listening to. Right. You'll be listening to people,
very
real
flawed.
People. Right. Even pre-record shows will be human beings. This is. We're on the cusp of something that a lot of people I don't think are prepared for. You see it on social media. These videos, these pictures that are almost getting to be even more indistinguishable from reality. We're on the cusp of something that a lot of people aren't ready for. There are industries not ready for this. Yeah. You want to talk about an industry that's not ready to compete with AI? It's the music industry. The movie industry. And this is still this technology, folks, in its infancy. It's only going to get better
and quickly.
So, that's. it's going to be crazy over the next 5 years as far as AI technology goes. Folks, that is all the time we have. We appreciate you listening to us on AFR.net and AFR and on the radio. It's Thanksgiving week. Hope you enjoy your plans. We have more great programming ahead on American Family Radio.